I've lived in the Appalachian foothills of Pennsylvania my entire life, so I'm no stranger to the sounds of the woods. I know what a fisher cat sounds like when it's screaming in the middle of the night, and I know the heavy trudge of a black bear passing through the underbrush. But for the last 2 weeks, something has been circling my property that doesn't fit into anything I've ever known. And the isolation of living 30 miles outside the near city is finally starting to get to me. I have 2 neighbors within a mile, but they're both older, keep to themselves, and their houses are tucked way back. For the most part, it's just me, my house, and several acres of thick woods. It started exactly 14 days ago. I've always been a light sleeper, but I was jolted awake by a sound that I can only describe as a mix between a teenage girl screaming in terror and the sound of steel being twisted until it snaps. It was ear-piercing, vibrating through the glass in my bedroom window. In a panic, I grabbed my phone. I don't know who I was going to call, but it made me feel better. The sound only lasted a little while, and when I looked at my phone, it was exactly 2:15 in the morning. At first, I tried to think it through. I thought maybe it was a great horned owl, or some kind of deranged bird that had wandered into the neighborhood. But the sound was too heavy and metallic. It happened once, lasted maybe 5 seconds, and then the woods went deathly quiet. Not even the crickets were chirping after that. This happened for 3 nights in a row, every single night, 2:15 a.m. It was so precise that I began to wake up at 2:10 in anticipation and stare at the ceiling, waiting for the screech to tear through the air. At this time, I was more annoyed than afraid, but that would later change. On the 4th night, things moved from weird to unsettling. I was lying in bed, having just heard the screech, when I saw a movement outside my 2nd floor window. There are no streetlights out here. It's pitch black unless there's a clear moon. That night, the moon was bright enough to silhouette the trees. As I looked toward the window, a massive shadow swept across the glass. It moved with an incredible speed, blotting out the moonlight for a solid second. Now, I know that a small bird close to a light can cast a large shadow, but this thing was passing between the moon and my house, and it was still huge. I sat up, clutching my sheets. I told myself it was a trick of the light, or I was sleep deprived, but the apprehension wouldn't leave. By the 5th night, I started to anticipate it. I couldn't sleep at all. I decided to stay up, thinking that if I were downstairs with the lights on, I'd feel more safe. Around 2 a.m., I was in the kitchen making a cup of herbal tea, trying to settle my nerves. I had some lo-fi music playing on my phone to drown out the silence. Suddenly, the music began to stutter, and then cut out entirely. The overhead kitchen lights dimmed, pulsing low, and then bright again. The microwave clock flickered. A few minutes later, the 2:15 a.m. screech happened, echoing from somewhere right above the roof. After the sound faded, the lights went back to normal, and my music started playing again as if nothing had happened. I spent the next few days checking around my property during the day. Pretty much I was looking for things that could tell me what I was hearing. There were no feathers, broken branches, or strange prints in the dirt. Whatever it was wasn't landing near the house at least. On the 8th night, I decided I had to see it. I wanted to be able to ID it so I knew what I was dealing with. I sat by the window in my living room with the lights out, looking out at the patch of sky visible through the clearing in the trees. 2:15 came. The screech tore through the night, and then I saw it. It was high up, silhouetted against the sky. Being so high up, I couldn't get the best look, but I could tell it wasn't a bird. It had a massive wingspan, easily 10 to 12 feet, and 2 long thin legs that trailed behind it in flight. What bothered me was the lack of tail feathers. Herons and cranes have long legs, but they have tail feathers. It looked more like a living kite, angular and dark. It didn't flap even once, it just glided until it disappeared over the ridge. After that sighting, I stopped trying to figure out what it was. Besides the noise, it hadn't tried to bother me. I figured as long as it stayed up there, I could live with the noise. I got used to the light flicker, knowing it would go back to normal once the thing left. Then, 2 days ago, the annoyance turned into something a little more real. I take walks in the woods behind my house most mornings. It's a way to clear my head and get some exercise. About a quarter-mile in, near a small creek bed, I found a deer. It was an older buck and it hadn't been dead long. I've seen what coyotes do to a carcass, and I've seen what happens when a car hits a deer. This was neither. The deer's back was covered in deep lacerations, like something had raked 3 or 4 claws down its spine with enough force to peel back the skin. Something had also taken a single, large bite out of its midsection. There were no tracks around the body, no signs of a struggle in the leaves. It was as if the deer had been dropped there, or attacked from directly above. The screeching has become less regular over the last few nights. It doesn't happen every night at 2:15 anymore. Now it's sporadic. Sometimes it's 1 a.m. and sometimes it's 4 a.m. In some ways, the lack of a schedule is worse, because I can't prepare for it. I've started sleeping with heavy noise-canceling headphones on, just so I don't have to hear that tearing metal sound. It helps me get through the night, but it also makes me feel vulnerable. If it lands on my roof, I won't hear it. If it's outside my door, I'm deaf to it. My neighbors are too old to care, and if I tell the local cops I'm seeing a giant shadow with no tail feathers and it messes with my Wi-Fi, they'll think I'm on something. Has anyone in the Appalachian area, specifically rural PA, seen or heard anything like this? I'm staying inside after dark now, but even then I can feel the house get a little darker when it comes around, and I know it's up there. I'm a farmer in Iowa, been working the same land for going on 15 years. I'm not the type to get spooked easily, and I've spent plenty of nights alone in fields and barns without issue. But I've seen this thing 4 times now, and I still don't know what to make of it. The first time was in July, middle of the day. I was out fixing one of the sprinkler systems in the back 40. It was brutally hot, and anyone who spent a summer in the Midwest knows it was incredibly humid. Sweat kept dripping into my eyes and stinging, so I was squinting most of the time while trying to see what I was doing with the pipe connections. I heard footsteps coming up behind me through the corn. The stalks were tall by then, maybe 6 feet, and I figured it was my wife coming to check if I wanted lunch. I turned around to say hello, but nobody was there, only rows of corn stretching back toward the house. Then I saw the stalks moving like someone was walking through them, pushing them aside as they went. I hollered hello and got no reply. I'm not a skittish person, yet standing there I got this overwhelming feeling that something was wrong. Not sure how else to put it. It was this deep sense that I needed to leave. I told myself I was being ridiculous and that I should take a break. Convinced myself it was the heat getting to me and I should come back when it cooled off a bit. Then I started packing up my tools, but that feeling only got stronger. It was that feeling that someone was watching me. My hands were shaking a little as I closed the toolbox. That's when I heard my name, clear as day, coming from somewhere in the corn. I spun around expecting one of the farmhands. No one was there. Only heat shimmer rising off the field. Except the shimmer wasn't right. It was kind of concentrated, forming a shape. I followed the outline upward and realized it looked like a person, or at least the suggestion of one. I didn't think. I just grabbed my toolbox and ran back to my truck. I drove the mile back to the house faster than I should have on the dirt roads. Once I got inside, I grabbed myself a cold drink and sat in the AC for a long while, trying to convince myself it was heat exhaustion or dehydration. 2 months later, I wasn't so sure. It was September, around 9 at night. I'd been in the shop doing maintenance on the combine, getting ready for the harvest. The The sun had just set and I was walking back to the house when I heard footsteps on the gravel behind me. I turned around and saw nothing but the dark yard and the night sky. The shop light on the roof was still on, casting everything in a bluish-white glow. Then there was movement to my left, that same shimmer again, but in the artificial light this time. It wasn't as obvious as in the heat, more subtle, but I could still see the outline. That feeling came rushing back, but I was mad at myself for running last time. I tried to get a good look at it and walked a few more steps closer. My eyes couldn't hold on to it. It wasn't moving, but I couldn't make my brain understand what it was looking at. It was like trying to focus on something in your peripheral vision. The harder I looked, the less I could see. Then it was gone. I don't know if it walked away or simply vanished. 1 second I could barely make out the shimmer, and the next I couldn't see anything at all. The third time was in October during harvest. I was in the combine working through one of the last fields. Movement caught my eye to the left, corn stalks bending and parting like someone was walking through them. But I was up in the combine. I could see there wasn't anyone there. I watched it for maybe 30 seconds as I drove, this invisible thing moving parallel to me before I turned and lost sight of it. The last time was a year ago this spring. I was driving home just before sunset, taking it slow on the dirt roads around the property. There's lots of potholes, so I keep it to about 25. The sun was coming through the trees at an angle, breaking everything up with shadows. The light caught something on the side of the road, that shimmer again. I hit the brakes. Maybe it was the way the sunset was filtering through the branches, or maybe I was just at the right angle this time, but I could see it better. Definitely human-shaped, but tall. Really tall. If I had to guess, I'd say about 8 feet. It was walking into the forest on the other side of the road, and the way it moved, it reminded me of a chameleon. The way it blended with everything around it. Light, shadow, trees, all of that seemed to blend around this thing. Then it was gone into the woods. I remembered how it made me feel before, and I wasn't about to follow something that tall into the trees by myself. So I drove home. I haven't told my wife. It's not that I think she wouldn't believe me. She would, or at least she'd listen. I just don't see the point. It would only make her worry, and I have no proof. The thing hasn't hurt me, hasn't threatened me, and yeah, it makes me feel scared in a way I'm not used to, but other than that, it's only watched me, if it's even watching. Maybe I've just been in the wrong place at the wrong time 4 times now. Except it knew my name. That's the part I can't explain. What it means, I have no clue. I don't know what to do about this thing, or even if I should do anything. It's been a year since I've seen it, but I don't think it's gone. Something tells me it's still out there, only it's gotten better at not being seen. This started during a storm back in June. My cat Pepper has always been nervous around thunderstorms, but this was different. The first crack of lightning sent her into a panic like I'd never seen before. She wasn't just hiding under the couch like usual. She was literally climbing the walls, and I'm using literally as it should be used. She was scrambling up the drywall, claws out, like she was trying to escape something. Between thunderclaps, she'd bounce from one corner of the living room to another, knocking over a lamp and sending my mail flying everywhere. I tried to calm her down, but she was having none of it. She'd disappear under the blankets, then suddenly shoot out and start the whole thing over again. I'd lived with this cat for 4 years, and never seen her act like this. It was honestly starting to freak me out more than the storm itself. Then she just stopped dead still in the middle of the living room, staring at the back door. Her back arched so high I thought her spine might snap. The hiss that came out of her was urgent and high-pitched, followed by this growl I didn't even know cats could make. The fur on her tail was completely puffed out, making it look 3 times its normal size. Now I was spooked. I got up and walked over to the door, trying to see what had gotten her attention. The back porch light was off and I couldn't make out anything in the darkness, only my fence and the trees beyond it barely visible in the rain. Then lightning lit up the entire yard. For maybe half a second, everything was bright as day, and standing near my back fence was some massive thing on 2 legs, kinda hunched forward, and way too big to be a person. I couldn't make out details, just this large silhouette. Everything went dark again. I stood there, kind of numb, waiting for the next flash of lightning. When it came, the yard was empty. There was nothing there at all. I stood at the door for probably 10 minutes, but I didn't see anything else. Eventually, I convinced myself it was just the weird angle of the lightning. Maybe a shadow from a tree playing tricks on me. Pepper calmed down after that. She went back to her normal scaredy cat self, hiding under the bed until the storm passed, and I tried to forget about it. A week later, I was watching TV around 10 p.m. when Pepper started acting up again. No storm this time, but she was doing the exact same thing, bouncing off the walls, hiding under the couch cushions. Then she did the whole arched back and hiss thing again. I didn't wait. I flipped on the porch light immediately. Still didn't get a good look, but I saw something hairy moving away from the light, fast. It was big enough that I could see it clearly despite only catching a glimpse. It looked vaguely human, but it wasn't walking like one. It disappeared toward the corner of my backyard before I could get a better view. I opened the door and the smell hit me. Rotting meat mixed with something musky and wild. It was so strong it made my eyes water. I grabbed my flashlight from the kitchen and stepped outside, trying not to gag. My yard isn't huge, maybe 30 by 40 feet, and the porch light covers about half of it. I swept the flashlight across the grass, along the fence line and into the corners. Whatever it was long gone. My wooden fence was intact all the way around. No boards broken or pushed aside. No way something that size could have gotten in or out without leaving a trace. I went back inside, locked the door, and didn't sleep much that night. Months went by without incident. Pepper went back to her normal self. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Or maybe it was a bear, or something that wandered into the neighborhood. We're not that far from the woods. Then, last week, I was driving home from work on the back roads. I'd taken them to avoid the traffic on the highway. It's about 10 minutes to my commute, but after the day I'd had, I didn't want to deal with other drivers. It was early October, so the sun was already setting, and I was coming from a direction where it was shining right into my eyes. I was fumbling in my glove box for my sunglasses, not paying as much attention as I should have been. When I looked up, I slammed on my brakes so hard my seatbelt locked. At the edge of the road, right where the pavement meets the tree line, something was walking. It was big and covered in dark hair, moving on 2 legs with this loping gait. Long arms swinging, long strides. For just a second, I had a clear view of it against the setting sun. Then it was gone, disappearing into the trees like it had never been there at all. I sat in my car for a while, engine running, staring at where it had been. Part of me wanted to get out and look for tracks or some kind of evidence. The smarter part of me put the car in drive and went home. I haven't seen it since. Pepper's been acting normal. Nothing else unusual has happened. I've been thinking about it real hard since it happened. I hate to say it, but I think I saw Bigfoot. I'm posting this here because I've seen similar stories about people being followed or lured, and I'm hoping someone can give me a lead on what I actually encountered. I was at home around 10:30 p.m., just about to start a skincare routine and head to bed when my phone rang. It was my friend Sarah. We've been close since high school. So when she told me her car was dead and she was stranded, I didn't even hesitate. She sounded stressed and a little embarrassed, explaining that she'd gone out to the bend to clear her head and look at the stars. She left her lights on so she could see her way up the hill, and it must have killed her battery. For those who don't know my area, the bend is this spot, about 30 minutes outside the city. It's a small gravel pull-off on a hill that overlooks a valley. It's a popular spot for teenagers to hang out, but on a weeknight it's usually deserted. It's a pretty drive, but once you get past the suburbs, there are no streetlights, and the trees start to crowd the road pretty tightly. I grabbed my keys, threw on a hoodie, and headed out. I remember the drive felt longer than usual. The fog was rolling in low over the asphalt, and the further I got from the city, the more isolated I felt. By the time I reached the turnoff for the gravel road leading to the hill, I hadn't seen another pair of headlights for 10 miles. When I pulled up to the spot where Sarah said she'd be, I got a little confused. The gravel lot was empty. I did a drive-by and scanned the area with my high beams. When I didn't see anything, I thought maybe I was at the wrong place. I tried to give her a call, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again and got the same result. At this point, I was more worried than scared. I thought on it for a bit, then figured maybe she'd parked further up the old logging trail that branches off the main hill, and walked into the clearing to get a better view of the sky. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped out of the car. I started hollering her name and told her to stop playing around and show me where the car was. After about a minute of silence, there came a reply from the tree line about 50 yards away. I heard Sarah's voice calling my name back. She told me she was over here and asked if I could come help her carry some stuff. I shouted back, asking where the hell her car was, and her voice drifted further back into the trees, telling me it was just a little further down the path, and to keep walking toward her. I started heading into the brush. I know this area fairly well. I've hiked it during the day plenty of times, but the dark changes everything. I kept calling out to her, and she kept responding, always telling me I was getting closer. But as I pushed through some heavy bushes, a weird realization hit me. I was heading into a section of the woods that was nothing but steep ravines and dense brambles. There wasn't a road back here. There wasn't even a foot trail. I stopped walking. I realized there was no way Sarah could have gotten her sedan back here. I called out to her again, but this time I asked her to come out so I could see her. I told her I wasn't going any further into the brush without a better light. That's when the responses stopped. I stood there for a good 30 seconds. The silence felt heavy. I kept my phone light aimed toward where the voice had been coming from, but all I could see were pines. I called her name again, still no response. I decided I was done. I wasn't about to break my neck in the dark. My phone flashlight wasn't cutting it. Out loud, I said I was going back to my car to get the heavy-duty mag light I keep in the trunk. I turned around to head back toward the gravel lot, and that's when I heard the first rustle. It came from my left, maybe 20 feet away. It sounded like something heavy moving through the dry pine needles. I snapped my light towards the sound, but saw nothing. Then, almost instantly, there was a matching sound to my right. I froze and held my breath. It felt like I was being flanked. Either there were two people out there, or whatever was moving was stupid fast. I yelled out one more time, saying that I was heading back to the car. Nothing but silence again. I played it cool for now and didn't run. I wasn't scared yet, but a little concerned. So I started walking back the way I came, keeping my back to the car and my eyes scanning the woods behind me. Every few steps, I'd hear a crunch of the leaves, or the snap of a twig somewhere around me. Then my phone started vibrating in my hand. I looked down. It was Sarah. I swiped to answer immediately, not even stopping. I didn't even say hello. I just asked her where she was. Sarah's voice on the other end sounded completely normal. She told me a guy in a truck had pulled over about 10 minutes after she called me, and he gave her a jump start. She'd been trying to call me to tell me not to come out, but the calls wouldn't go through. She told me she was already halfway home and asked if I was okay. I looked at my screen while she was talking. Sure enough, there were 2 missed calls from her within the last 10 minutes. For some reason, I never felt the vibration until now. I told her it was fine, but that she owed me some sushi for making me come out. I hung up, and the second the screen went dark, I realized that if Sarah had been gone for 10 or 15 minutes, the voice I'd been following into the woods wasn't hers. I turned and bolted, and I didn't care about playing it cool anymore. I ran for the clearing. Behind me, I could hear something tearing through the underbrush, not even trying to be quiet anymore. I burst out of the tree line into the gravel lot. I fumbled with my door handle, and as soon as I opened the door, I threw myself into the driver's seat. I glanced back at the edge of the woods. My peripheral vision caught something moving between the trees. It stayed there in the shadows, but it moved with this weird janky motion. It reminded me of a puppet being pulled by strings. I slammed the car into gear and floored it. As I swung the car around to head back down the hill, my headlights swept across the very edge of the woods I'd just been. I only saw it for a fraction of a second, but my mind held on to the details as best I could. Something ducked behind a thick oak tree as the light hit it. It looked vaguely human, except it was impossibly skinny. Through skin that looked like gray parchment, I could see ribs sticking out. I didn't look back again. I drove 80 all the way back to the city limits. I have no clue what it was trying to do. If it had wanted to get me, it had lots of opportunity. I feel like it was playing with its food or something, because no way that thing didn't want to do something terrible to me. Does anyone know what this thing could have been? I live in a small town in northern Michigan. Population maybe 4,000 if you're being generous. Not much here except a main street, some churches, and a lot of farms and forest. I've got a border collie mix named Jasper, and we go to this dog park on the north end of town a few times a week. It's not much of a park, really, just a fenced area with some trees and a field beyond it that stretches out for miles. Past that field, there's nothing but more trees and the occasional abandoned barn. So 3 weeks ago, I took Jasper there around 7 p.m. It was getting close to sunset, that time where the light goes kind of golden and flat. We'd been there maybe 20 minutes, and I was ready to head out. I called Jasper to come, but he didn't listen. He was at the far edge of the fence line, right where it borders the field, and he was going absolutely nuts. Barking, whining, and that focused stare he gets when he's locked onto something. I figured it was a rabbit or maybe a coyote. I walked over to grab him and clip his leash on so we could get going. When I got close, I bent down to reach for his collar, and that's when I saw it. There was something moving through the tall grass, maybe 30 yards out. At first, I only saw the top of its back. It was white, almost glowing in the evening light, and the surface looked wet or shiny somehow. There were these protrusions along the spine. Could have been spikes, could have been the actual vertebrae pushing up through the skin. I don't really know. I stood there watching it move parallel to the fence. It was fast but not running, more like a lope. Then it crossed a gap in the field where the grass was shorter and I got a better look. It was on all fours and really long. And that skin, it looked fake, like a plastic sheet or vinyl. Then it was gone into the taller grass and I couldn't see it anymore. Jasper stopped barking after that and just stood there panting. I put his leash on and we went back to the car. He kept looking over his shoulder the whole way back. I've been trying to figure out what it could have been. Maybe it was a deer with some kind of disease. Or maybe the light was playing tricks. I still take Jasper to the park, but we don't stay as late anymore. And I keep thinking about how long that thing was, stretched out low in the grass. I don't know what I saw, and I kinda don't want to know. This was last September, so pretty recent. I was driving back from Provincetown to my rental in Eastham. It was around 10 p.m. and Route 6 through that stretch is basically just trees and darkness, with the occasional gas station. I'd been up on the Cape for a long weekend, just needed to get away from Boston for a bit. The drive back that night was quiet, hardly any other cars on the road. Just me, my headlights, and miles of scrub pine on either side. I was maybe 10 minutes outside Wellfleet when I saw someone standing on the shoulder. A woman, I thought at first. She was facing the woods with her arms hanging at her sides, completely still. I slowed down because it seemed weird. There was no car nearby, no flashlight, nothing really. She was just standing there in the dark. As I got closer and my headlights swept over her, I saw she was wearing what looked like a nightgown, or maybe a long white shirt. Her hair was dark and hung down past her shoulders. She didn't turn when my car approached, didn't move at all. That's when I noticed something else in the tree line behind her. It was partially hidden by the scrub brush, but I could make out a shape. Tall, maybe 7 feet, hunched forward like it was watching her, or watching the road. The headlights only caught it for a second, but it looked all weird. The arms were too long, hanging down past where the knees would be, and the head was tilted at a strange angle. I don't think humans can turn their head like that. I know I can't. I didn't stop. I kept driving, but I looked in my rearview mirror. The woman still hadn't moved, and that shape in the trees, I swear it had stepped closer to her, out of the brush enough that I could see it was white or gray, the color of birch bark. Then the curve in the road took them out of view. I kind of talked myself out of what I had seen by coming up with other reasons. Maybe it was a deer, maybe it was a weirdly shaped tree, maybe the woman was just taking a walk and needed air. It's crazy how still she was. If something like that was near me, I'd be scared, or trying to flag a car down to get me out of there. She, on the other hand, only stood there facing the woods like she was waiting for something. And those arms on that thing behind her, they hung down in a way that kind of gives me a shiver. I don't know what I saw that night, but I hope that woman is all right. Somehow I have a feeling that woman and the creature were together, and I don't know what that means. You have been watching Neon Noir, a Radion production brought to you by Trapper Dan, the finest in canned survival food.